And I'm going to spotlight Sébastien so you can see him, and I'll spotlight myself just briefly because this is mostly going to be his show. He's the man, he's the founder, he's the guy we really want to hear from today for the most part. I'm just here to help things along. So welcome everyone. I am really excited to be here today with you all, and I'm so excited that you all joined. We're going to dive into motion graphics. Motion graphics to me, some of you have answered your questions, and I'll show you what you've answered this question. To me, motion graphics has always seemed like something really complicated. I have to use Adobe After Effects or Apple Motion. I have to know a lot about sophisticated kind of parameter adjustments and reading a software manual and all that kind of stuff. And here comes Jitter and says, maybe it could be a little bit simpler. Kind of like Canvas's graphic, still graphics can be a little bit easier, kind of like some slide tools. Like pitch.com say, slide making can be a little easier. So to me, Jitter is a good example of taking a really complicated subject and making it a little easier, more accessible, more useful for ordinary people who aren't necessarily the gurus of software and technology. So thanks for doing that, Sébastien, and for taking time today to walk us through how that works and how that actually happens. So with that, I'll turn it over to you so we can dive into the tool. First, if people would just drop in the chat where you're dialing in from. That would be interesting. I think it's always fun to see where people are calling in from. So if you don't mind, just put in the chat where you're dialing in from today for this session, and then I will turn over the floor to Sébastien to delve in further.
Cool. Thank you so much, Jeremy, and thanks you all for being here. I'm super excited. So yeah, I'm Sébastien, but everybody calls me Robi. So I'm Robi, co-founder of Jitter. Just a little bit of background. So I've got a degree in computer science, but I quickly turned designer. And so I've been working for quite a lot of startups. And during my job, I realized how hard it was to create cool animated content. Like I often have to make demos for interfaces or like to promote like the new version of the product, and like had to try to learn After Effects. It was super complicated, so I often resorted to code, which is kind of crazy, but this is what my background was. And so yeah, it was super hard. And this is when I got the chance to meet my co-founder, Etienne, who had just sold his previous company. He was making a video editing app on iPhone, and he had the same problems at his company. And so this is why we decided to launch Jitter. And so basically, so Jitter is a motion design tool on the web. And so we help designers or creatives in general to make professional animations for their videos or their communication content, social posts, etc. Super easily, like way much faster and way much easier than After Effects. I think the best way to show the tool is to just make a quick demo of like with a concrete case study. I'll just start with a quick product tour, and then we can start designing together. And so please feel free to interrupt me anytime. Like, let's this be as interactive as possible. Feel free to ask any questions if there are things you want to clarify as I show you the tool. So I'm going to share my screen. This is the one. All right. Cool. Thanks. Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah. So, quick product tour. So, like, you can access the tool at Jitter.video in your browser. So it's optimized for Chrome at the moment, but will support other browsers later on. So we have like a change log where we present what we do. Like we ship new features every week. We have a help center, and the most interesting part for you guys is probably the template gallery. So if you really don't know how to start, or like if you need examples to get started, like lots of templates that you can start from, and like you can adapt the content, like just replace the text or replace images, like to create something for your needs. And then, so once you're logged in, you can access your files. And so we're going to create something from scratch now. let's take a concrete example. I propose to create a short GIF or video to announce your latest blog article, for instance. So, so the interface is pretty like easy. So I'm just going to create a new file here, and the first step is going to be to design my creation in Jitter. Then we'll animate it, and finally we'll export it as a GIF or a video. So this is the interface. So it's pretty similar to other design tools like Canva or Figma or Sketch. And I'm going to start by choosing the artboard size. So let's say I want to make a Facebook post, for instance. I can also like enter my artboard dimensions, like custom artboard dimensions if I want. And then I'm going to import my first image. So let's say I'm importing this this image. So I'm just going to shape the design. I'm going to add some text. So for instance, the blog post is how to become a motion designer. So I've got my inspector here where I can choose like fonts. So let's design it like this. I'm going to resize the text, align it on the left. So you can see I have like some guides here to snap to make it easier to create the design. You can change the line height here. So let's do, I don't know, like 110. Font size, let's put 48 maybe. So this is my title. Then I'm going to add another text to say read the full post at whatever, Jitter.video/blog, which doesn't exist yet, but it's going to exist soon. So say I'm going to change the font, maybe change the color, make something like a little bit, or like use the color picker here to use a color that is aligned with the image. I'm going to bring the size down, and I'm going to finish with like a tag at the top. So I'm going to create a rectangle. I'm going to add a corner radius. So if you can see, like you can change the corner radius here. So let's say it's corner radius of 16. And I'm going to add here a new text with new blog posts. And similarly, I'm going to change the font to Inter. I'm going to make it all caps. Change the letter spacing a little bit to make it more sleek, I would say. Change the font size, change the weight, and change the color as well. So let's change the color of the rectangle as well, like this. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger so that we can see. And I just forgot one thing. I'm going to group things here. So I'm going to select my text and my rectangle with Shift and press or like right click and group them so that now I can move it as a single entity. All right, so I've got my design, and now I'm going to move to the second part of the whole process, which is to animate that. So I'm going to switch to the animate tab here and So here you can see the timeline that just appeared. And now we're going to add animations to the objects. So one of the things that makes Jitter super easy is that we're proposing a lot of animation presets so that you can add animations to your object in just a few clicks. So let's start with the image. So I'm selecting the image here. I can go to the left, so it's always to the inspector here. Click new animation, and here I've got a list of several ways to make my image appear. So for instance, I could make it appear like this, or like you can make it shrink in, or I'm gonna create an animation with a mask. So it's a mask reveal animation, and then I can change like some of the parameters of the animation. Like let's say I want to make it appear from the left. So you can see that the animation just appeared in the timeline here. And then, so I can move the time cursor to preview the animation, or click the play button here, or press the space bar just to preview my my animation. So I just added one animation to the image to make it appear. I'm going to do the same for my other elements from my design. So I'm going to select that tag here, which I can rename here, by the way, with like a double click. So similarly, I'm going to select the tag, place the time cursor where I want the animation to start, click new animation, row in animation, and the animation appears in the timeline. Time the animation, so like for now, it's first the image, then the tag. Maybe I want them to start almost at the same time to make it more dynamic. So I just drag the segment here near the beginning of the timeline, like this. And maybe it's a little bit too slow, so I can also adjust the timing or like the duration of the animation by just dragging the handles of the segment. So let's preview this. Not bad. So similarly, I'm selecting the text, click new animation, and here again, I've got other presets. So I particularly like the mask animation again, so I'm going to select this one. And as you can see, so there are several parameters that you can use as well. And I can also say if I want to animate the text letter by letter, or well, word by word, or line by line. So let's say I want to do a letter by letter animation. And for the last text, I'm going to do pretty much the same. Let's make maybe a fade in animation. And similarly, I'm going to adjust the duration of the animation. So maybe it's a little bit too slow, so I'm going to reduce the delay between like the words to make it faster. All right, there you go. And so we just built like a cool animation for this like image in just a few clicks. One thing we can do just to like polish the animation is to add other animations to make the elements disappear. So I'm going to do the same. Select the image, new animation. Here I've got an out tab. So it's for the animations that make the elements disappear. So I'm going to create mask reveal. Animation out, like these two texts at the same time, and say it's a mask out, and whoops, mask out animation. And there you go. So this is basically how, like, the basics of Jitter. So we've seen like how we can create a scene and then add animations to the objects. And the last step is to export the creation as a GIF or a video. And for this, we have the export button here, where we propose several formats. So let's say we want to make an MP4, like a video. So I'm going to click video here. It opens a new tab, and it's rendering the video. So it's pretty fast. And then I can download it and save it, like save it on my computer. And it didn't save it in the folder. I don't know why. And I can preview it right here. Cool. So yeah, this is like the basics of Jitter. I don't know if you guys have questions already. I'd be happy to answer them. And then in the next part of the workshop, we'll see how you can, like, so we'll see more advanced features, like how you can create like really custom animations to make them really yours without like using too many presets. So, but yeah, so first I'll be super happy to answer first questions.
Yeah, thanks, Sebastian. So feel free to drop a question in the chat if you'd like, or if you want to unmute and ask a question verbally, that's fine, whatever you prefer. Let's take just a couple of minutes and just be as brief and concise as possible with your question if you can, just because so we can get to another demo and some final questions at the end as well. While we're waiting for the first question from you all, my question is, Sebastian, give us a couple more examples of why and when you'd use this. So why use this as opposed to a static graphic? Like you can create a graphic quickly on Canva. People have other ways of creating just a static graphic. What's the value, do you think, or what are some of the reasons that it adds value? And then what are a couple additional examples of when you find this to be useful to use?
Yeah, totally. So we've got, I would say we've got like two main use cases. Like the first one is media production. So either you need to create a video to promote, I don't know, like a new product or a new blog article. And the video media is much more engaging than the static media. So like as a rule of thumb, like it's always better to make an animated version because it's going to catch the attention of your audience much better. Like when you scroll on Instagram or on LinkedIn, like you can stop when you see something moving, while you won't necessarily stop if something is totally static. The other use case is like for designers, and like they make a lot of prototypes for their applications or websites in a super quick way. But I guess this might not be like the focus here. So yeah, I would say like the main value that Jitter can provide is that in just a few clicks, like in literally like 3 minutes of extra time, you can add a lot more value to like your graphical content because you add animations to them.
Great. Yeah, thank you. That makes a lot of sense. And there's a question from Susan, my colleague at the J School here in New York, about is there an advantage of doing this in animating text in this as opposed to Adobe Premiere, which let's say a lot of professional media people might be using?
Yeah, so I would say it depends on your use case. Like if you want to make a super long video, for now, like it's probably better to use Premiere, because like it's a real video editing tool. For like short content, like Jitter is like kind of optimized for this. And as for the text animation features, like this is super easy to do in Jitter, while in other tools like Premiere or After Effects, like it's kind of, unless like you're using other templates that you have to pay for. Like I know there are lots of text templates on some like marketplaces. But other than this, like it's super complicated to make text animations. Like you have to animate the things each word by each word. like it really takes a lot of time. While here, we know that texts are like super important in the creations, and this is where like we spend quite a lot of time making sure we can actually like make those text animations super easily, like change the way you split the text, change the way the text arrives. Like for instance, I just added a bounce effect here. So yeah, I would say it depends on your use case, but if you want to make something short and quite unique, Jitter is probably easier than Premiere.
Great, thank you for that. Any other maybe one more quick question from anyone? Anything someone's wondering about or you have in mind? I want to throw a quick poll out there. This is actually using a new Zoom feature, so it may or may not work on your Zoom, depending on what Zoom you're using.
Questions?
It's what's a purpose you have in mind? Can you see that poll? Do people see the poll? Yeah, okay, so hopefully it'll work. It's an open question, which Zoom didn't used to allow. Now it does. Let's see if it works for you. But the question is what's something you might like to create a motion graphic for? So I'll just give you a bit of time. If it's not working in Zoom, you can put it in the chat. If you can't use the Zoom, you can just put some thought that you have in mind.
Yep.
And I'll give you a minute to 30 seconds or so. And meanwhile, Robi, you can maybe ready your next example if you want to, and then we can dive in.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so for the second example, I think it's a good idea to show you like some more advanced features of Jitter. So like I've got oops, sorry. So I'll go back to my file list. So one of the things we do for like more power user is first we allow them to import some of their designs from another design tool which is super popular at the moment, which is called Figma. So I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but like it's one of the new standards. Like it's been replacing Sketch basically. And so we just added that button here in the interface. So basically we created a Figma plugin that you can use to import your designs from Figma. So the advantage is that Figma is a design tool, so like it's like really convenient to make like very complete and like detailed designs. And so you don't have to redo all of the work. Like for instance, you already have your static version of your social media image, and you can import it directly from Figma without having to redo everything in Jitter. So I just prepared like this sticker, which is like basically a subscribe button for YouTube, which I made in Figma already. And so I'm just gonna right click here, go to the plugin Jitter, and it will propose me to export that artboard to Jitter. So I'm gonna click here. It's uploading. I'm opening the file in Jitter. And there we are. And now we can start animating it. And so this time we're gonna like use custom animations without like all the preset things to make something that is a little bit more complicated. So first I'm gonna remove the background of the artboard here because I want to make a sticker that I'm going to be able to reuse in other videos later on. Like for instance, I can import it in Premiere. So I'm going to remove the background here. And so I'm already in the Animate tab. And so first thing, I'm going to make the button appear. So I'm going to create new animation. And instead of using one of the presets, I'm going to go to custom here. And so here I've got access to all the elementary operations that I can apply to my objects to animate them. So let's say I want to make a scale animation, and I want it to go from 0. So I'm going to add an initial value here. So from 0 to 100%. Oops. Here. And then let's say I want So I don't want it to go from 0, maybe it's 80. But I also want to add an opacity to it. So same, I'm going to custom animations, select opacity here. And similarly, I say, I want to go from 0 opacity to 100% opacity. And I'm going to change the duration here. And this is my animation. The second thing I can do is change what we call the easing function, which is basically the way the animation happens. So at the moment, I selected what we call a natural easing, where like the animation accelerates and then decelerates. Let's say I want to make an elastic easing to make a more bouncy effect. So like this. Looks pretty good. And so I just built my first custom animation. I want to group them because like I don't want to see the details once I created this. So I'm going to select those 2 elements in the timeline, and just like I can group elements like layers on the Canva, here I can right-click and select group now, so I've got an opacity and that I can move as a single entity. So this is the first animation. Then I'm going to create another animation for the cursor here. Actually, it's pretty easy. I'm just going to copy and paste this animation. So I'm going to press Command-C, select the cursor, and press Command-V. And as you can see, I just copied and pasted this first animation that I designed. So now I preview my animation in progress. All right, looking pretty good. And now I want the cursor to move to the button. So I'm going to add a new animation. So once again, I'm going to go to Custom and say I want to move. Oops, so it's gone not in the wrong way. So I'm going to drag it here. I'm going to say I want it to rotate a bit as well. And so as you can see, it just created a rotate animation as I was doing this. And if I preview, it's doing what I wanted it to do. Now I'm going to create a click animation. So for this, I'm going to place the cursor at the end of the move. And to create a click, it's going to be a scale down and scale up. So once again, new animation, custom scale. So scale to maybe 80%.
Let me just interrupt you quickly for a quick question. If you don't know, like you obviously know scale up, scale down, ease in, ease out, etc. Like if people don't know those kind of terms, do you find that like you can use trial and error pretty easily? That like that's typically my approach. Is that what you recommend, or is there a different process?
Sorry, say that again. I didn't.
Oh, I'm just saying that if you don't know the terms like ease in or you click, you don't know which function is going to do what exactly in advance. Like, do you just find like using trial and error will make it be an easy way to make it work?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, like it's like we want the tool to be super playful. So like, and like we have the undo redo. So like there is no risk of making a mistake, basically. So like the best way is just to try to click everywhere and see what you can do. And like sometimes there are some excellent surprises as well. Like with the like when you try something, it doesn't do what you expected, but like it's cool too. So yeah, I absolutely recommend to just explore and do some trial and error. But yeah, so I just did that scale animation. So scale down, I'm gonna make it like super short, like 0.2 seconds. And I'm gonna add another animation, like a new scale up this time to make it go back to 100%. And I'm going to change the easing as well. So yeah, and this makes a like kind of a click with like an elastic, like our bounce thing. And so similarly, I'm going to select those two animations, group them. So I can use also a keyboard shortcut, which is Command or Control G. I'm going to rename it as like a click. And I'm going to, once again, copy and paste this animation to the bottom. So Command C, select the button, and Command V. And as you can see, I just like offset the animation a little bit so that it first the cursor clicks and then the button clicks. So they're a little bit delayed. And now we can preview it. Cool. And now, so the last thing I have to do is to make the object disappear. So I'm going to make the scene a little bit longer here. So like right now it's lasting 4 seconds. I'm going to make it last maybe 5 seconds by dragging the handle here, or I can change the duration of the scene in the inspector. And so once again, so maybe this time I'm going to use a preset because they're here for that too, like to make it like fast work when you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But so I'm going to select the cursor here. I want it to disappear, so it's an out animation, like shrink out. Maybe I'll make it a little bit shorter, and same for the button. New animation, out, and let's go wild. Let's do it. Twist out animation, and I'm going to adjust the timing. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit too wild, so I'm going to change that to a shrink out as well, and I'm going to make it short to make it a little bit more dynamic. And actually, I think 4 seconds was a good duration for the scene, so I'm going to bring it back to 4 seconds. And so here's my animation. Subscribe, and then everyone disappears. And so if I want to preview the animation as a loop, I can enable the loop here, just to make sure that the things flow well. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. And so the last thing I have to do now is to export the video. And so as I mentioned, I removed the background of my artboard, so I can export a video or a GIF with a transparent background, so I can include it in like a longer video, for instance, in Adobe Premiere. So I'm going to click export the video. And so like the export process is a little bit longer for the transparent background videos. So maybe I can take one more question in the meantime. But yeah, other than this, so there are quite a lot of parameters that you can tweak here as well, like in the export. So you can choose the frame per seconds, or you can choose the format. So MP4, GIF, or WebM. And WebM is like another format that supports transparent backgrounds, but it's made for the web. So if you want to include your transparent background videos on the web, like this is the way to go. Yeah, so like the export is happening on the server this time, so this is why it's taking a little bit more time, but we're gonna get there. But yeah, I mean, like basically this is a demo. There you go. So I can download the video. And now if I open it, so as you can see, like it's a transparent background video, which is like quite cool. And so I can include this in like Premiere or iMovie or whatever video editing software you're using. All right, I think it's a pretty complete introduction to Jitter, showing like the main features. So I'd love to hear your questions or your feedback. We have like almost 10 minutes left, so let's make this a cool discussion around creativity and motion and animations.
So I want to ask you about just the computer itself. I have an old laptop here and it sort of struggles with certain software. I'm getting a new one hopefully soon. But people may also wonder kind of what they need to use this. Can it work on any Chromebook? Will it work across PC, Mac? Like anything that it won't work on?
Yeah, that is a great question. So it works. Can you still see my screen, by the way?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So let me just. And now I just want to remove my screen, but I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, we can't see your shared screen now, so that's fine unless you wanted to share. Okay,
screen. Cool.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so that's a great question. So one of the advantages of Jitter is that it's available in a web browser, so basically in Chrome. So you can use it either if you're on the Mac or on Windows. You just have to open Jitter.video in Chrome and start designing. So it's pretty convenient. You can get started right away. There's nothing to install. And actually, you can share your files with your coworkers as well, just by sharing a URL. So it's super easy for collaboration as well. Like there's nothing to export. Like you can just jump right in your files and get to work.
What's your vision going forward? I don't know how much you're open to saying publicly, but we're among friends here. So what are like a couple of key things that people will see, new features, new things you're planning to do?
Yeah. So we have lots of things to do. One of them is collaboration, like making sure that people can actually work together on the files. And share files and like get feedback on what they're doing. Another one is we want to support multiple artboards in a project so that you can design like multiple scenes and change them together to create like longer videos. Because like right now, Jitter is optimized to make like a single short video. Like it's basically just one scene where the element comes in and there's something happening and then it disappears. But then like, so we want to add the multiple artboards capabilities so that you can like make a longer videos of scene 1, scene 2, scene 3 and transitions between the scenes. Yeah, so like these are like two of the main big developments that we have. And the third one is we want to build a community around this with that vision of like making sure that people can benefit from each other's work and create like the things that people create, like they should be reusable by other people. So basically like we want designers to be able to create templates that anyone, any other user of Jitter can reuse, always in the same vision of speeding up the work of everybody and making sure that it gets more and more creative because people are just building on top of each other's work.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. I think that's a really nice way for people to benefit from the creativity of their colleagues and peers, et cetera. So as you mentioned, we're down to about 5 more minutes. Thanks for doing that. So speedy demos. It's really refreshing to see that you can create. I don't know how familiar people are with old ways of doing motion graphics, but at least in my experience, like that type of creation, that creative process can take, a good hour to an hour and a half, and you demoed it really, really quickly. So that's appreciated, and it illustrates that this can be something. Just in the way that Canva showed, we could make some quick graphics without knowing Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever. This really illustrates that we can start to actually create some motion graphics without really being experts, right? I think that's a big empowering thing. So thanks for building that and for showing that. Andy Matson wants to know if you can tell how often a template is used. So like, do you have a sense on your end of like which are the templates that people really like or use most?
So we don't display the data at the moment, but like definitely if we're like allowing users to submit their templates, like this is something we're going to display. So I don't have specific data for like each template that we have, but the data that we have is that approximately half of the new projects that are created by our users are from templates. So when someone just uses Jitter, like half of them are creating everything from scratch. Half of them are starting from template because it's just easier if they need a little help for inspiration or just to get started.
There are a few teachers in here and probably a few editors as well. For those of us who are thinking about helping other people, like what do you see as the rationale behind guiding people to use a simple tool like this versus like having them spend time learning something like Premiere or After Effects or Apple Motion?
Sorry, say that again.
What do you think in terms of teaching other people, right? So what do you see as the value of learning a simple tool like this, right, which allows you to do things quickly and easily versus learning an Adobe Premiere kind of more complicated but more powerful tool?
Yeah, so I think that what's interesting is that with like tools like Jitter, it's super easy to get started. So like actually like there's pretty much nothing to learn to make your first creations. But then like there's a second layer for more advanced users where you can like get more creative and make some custom things. So I wouldn't say that we have the creative power of an Adobe After Effects at the moment, but it's definitely worth investing some time learning Jitter as well to start creating like some like amazing creations. But yeah, so I would say that. So to answer your question, I would say that it's always good like to invest in learning. The big advantage of a tool like Jitter is that the learning curve is like really low, and you can get started right away and then like keep learning along the way. Whereas a lot of what our users have been telling us about After Effects is that it's so complicated and the learning curve is so steep that they don't even want to learn it. Like the drop after just a few dozens of minutes because it's just too complicated.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and the idea of it as a stepping stone makes a lot of sense to me. You know, you start with this; it's like a gateway drug. My older daughter's 9, and she's learning a little bit of coding through Scratch, which is like a stepping stone to then learning. You know, as a coder, I'm sure you can relate to that kind of stuff. You move from one level to another, and so you can move from this to, you know, maybe you kind of advance to or graduate to like a professional program if you need more power. Other final questions from folks as we get ready to wrap up here? I see Magdalena already made something and was like working at it and creating it in real time. So thanks for doing that. Do you want to say a word about what your experience was, Magdalena, as you were using it? How did you find it? I think you're still on mute.
Yes, I found it very intuitive. I tried it this morning before I prepared for the workshop and found it was not self-explaining. But now with a little help, 2 different layers of animating and graphic, it's getting very easy, and I try to, you know, I think it's a great tool, and I asked the questions in the chat if you will do some special pricing for trainers, because I think the pro version is, although pretty expensive.
Yeah, so definitely
Right
like we have an EDU plan. So like if you're an educator, just reach out to us and we'll make sure you can use the tool.
Great.
Thanks.
We poor educators appreciate that. Thanks, Robi, for that.
Well, free educators.
Right. Thanks, Magdalena, for sharing that. Anyone else have final questions before we wrap up? I think we're pretty much out of time. We'll share the video out if you want to go back and see what Robi showed again. And they have a great YouTube channel which has some really good videos for kind of following up on certain steps. I put the link in there earlier, and I'll copy it again one more time here. If you want to follow up, that's a good follow-up step. Thanks everyone for coming, and thanks Robi, especially you for taking out time to do this and for making such a great product. It's really fun to use and easy to use and a nice new addition to our toolkit. If you have any final comments, feel free to drop them in the chat. Anyone wants to share any final input? Thanks again, and you got 15 minutes of your hour back to enjoy with whatever activity you feel like doing, or give yourself a break, or take a deep breath or something and enjoy the last 15 extra minutes here. Thanks, Robi, and thanks everyone for.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.